Always great talking to my next guest, and so glad to see him get a fight here. It is Brad Katona, going to be back in action at EMC 6 coming up here on Halloween night. That's pretty cool. Brad, how's it going?
It's going good, man. I'm excited to get back in there.
I bet.
It's been a little while, hasn't it?
It certainly has. I know. It's funny. I was thinking, like, I was at your last fight, right, which was in Vancouver, at UFC Vancouver back in September of last year. We're talking about a fight here in October. Tell me how this came together, because last time we touched base earlier this year, I know there was a bit of uncertainty. COVID was going on. It was sort of in the thick of it. But tell me how this all came together.
So COVID hit. That kind of took the world by storm, I guess. And so, like, I guess that changes things as for us as fighters. We kind of have to adapt, and I don't want to say take what you can get, because that's not doing justice to the show I'm fighting on. But basically, management came to me, Paradigm came to me, and they said, "Listen, we got this promotion out here in Germany. They're putting on an event September 5th, and they want to do an event, like 3 events this year or something." And they'd like to sign you, and they want you to fight for the title right away. And I was like, absolutely, I'm on board. Let's get active, because really, well, one, big promotions, they had a roster of guys they owed fights to, so it's kind of hard being like, hey, I haven't fought in a year. You want to sign me to a nice juicy contract? It doesn't put you in the best negotiating position, and they didn't know when they were going to have the next event. I know Bellator's up and running. All the organizations are up and running now, but even in July it was uncertain. So EMC is putting on events, and I have a great opportunity to fight for the title and fight a top prospect out here with an 8-1 record. Some stoppages. So I've made a career off of fighting prospects and beating them. I fought Austin Ryan in Canada.
That's right.
I took a fight with TJ Laramie, and that fell through.
Kyler Phillips, you beat him on the Ultimate Fighter.
Kyler Phillips, Bryce Mitchell. I've made a career of fighting prospects. So let's do it again and build off that momentum. It's exciting to have a fight. It's not one where I want to be like, oh man, I should be fighting on a bigger show for tons more money. All that is just being negative. Instead, I'm excited because I get to do what I do, and a lot of people aren't in that position.
Yes, no, absolutely. We'll talk about the matchup in a second, but there's still a bunch I want to dig into here. So what were you doing when COVID hit? Because you can't train. You're in Ireland, like you're from Winnipeg originally. Like I know that's where you grew up and everything. So what were you doing during that time? Were you trying to just run outside? Like what could you do during the lockdown in Ireland?
So I came home basically, before Trudeau came on the TV and said, if you're Canadian, come home. Just before that, I think it was the Thursday night, the gyms closed here. Friday night, we started looking into flights. Saturday morning, we booked flights with the prices doubled what they were Friday night, because we were like, hey, everything's shut down here for a month. We'll go back home for a month, because at least gyms are open there. We can train, and at least we're going to be with family. So fast forward to Monday as we're getting on a plane, and it's, if you're Canadian, come home. And I was like, oh, okay, well, good thing we're on our way home right now. And then 1 month turned into 2 months, turned into pretty well July before things opened up here. So thankfully, I stayed at my parents. So moved back in with the old rents, and they have a garage and sourced training. I don't know, heavy bags, weights, everything from old gyms I used to train at. So the Winnipeg had me in mixed martial arts. Coach Curtis Brigham, he gave me some grappling mats to put down, so at least Katie and I could drill whatever we want to drill. We had a heavy bag and weights from United Boxing, my old boxing gym, so we hung that up in the garage, and it was kind of Rocky style, back to the fundamentals and back to the grassroots of combat sports, which was hit the heavy bag, lift the weights, and run. And fortunately that's all we had, but we made the best of it. It was refreshing, but man, I'm glad I don't need to do that right now.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I mean, you had to do what you had to do. I did see something of you being back home. I wasn't sure how long you were there, so that's crazy. It seemed like a couple months, right, when everything was sort of.
Yeah, it was from March, so I got like the end of winter all the way till mid-July. So I got some Winnipeg summer, and that's what keeps us sticking around. So it was nice. It was, at that point, nothing was going on, so there wasn't major stress of, okay, what's next? It was one of those where it was just uncertainty, and well, I think MMA has prepared me for uncertainty better than a lot of things. Just being able to put my mind at ease, being like, no, I'm improving. And luckily, I use that time to actually do a deep dive into some boxing and really study some tape, and then practice that when I go outside and work the heavy bag. So I had some deliberate practice. I had improvement going on. I was just like, okay, let's go run. Let's actually improve. And I'm actually looking back on that. I'm like, man, that was hard. I wouldn't want to be my coach, my sole coach, but at least I got improvement out of it.
Yes, that's sort of how you have to look at it. One more thing sort of leading into this fight. I figured Bellator was going to be your home, just with their connection to Europe and obviously doing a lot of shows, and I know a couple of your teammates compete for them as well. Was there any dialogue there? Because one of the things you did mention in this interview right now, and I kind of didn't think of it, is that they owe fights to guys, so they're probably not in a hurry to sign fighters. Yet, saying that, they've signed a lot of fighters recently. I don't know if you've seen Brett Johns, Jeremy Kennedy.
Just recently,
and they brought some Canadians over as well too. Josh Hill, I know that was last year, but still they brought him over. So was there any talks with them? Because I thought that would have been a good fit for you, especially in bantamweight, which is one of their hottest divisions right now.
Yeah, so a couple of things. So at least speaking with management, it seemed like they felt it was in our best interest to get a win underneath.
I've heard that before. Yeah.
It's well, Bellator doesn't want to make a name off signing ex-UFC guys, in just released, and so for us to be in our best negotiating position, let's go beat a good guy. And that's going to open up all the doors. If I put on a spectacular performance that I think I'm capable of, there's not saying, okay, we're only going to set our sights on Bellator. I'm hoping we'll talk to them. I'm hoping we'll talk to the UFC. If the performance is what I've been, man, this is a year in the making for me. So it's one of those where I'm looking to make a standout performance, and not at least in my head, nothing's off the table. So. I feel, and that's not discounting EMC. This is a big fight and everything, but I do have it in my contract that I can escape, or I can hop over to a major organization.
It's not exclusive, is what you're saying. Yeah, which is good. I think that's smart on your part. By the way, I was going to ask you, did Artem Lobov teach you that? I was talking to him recently, and he was talking about that though, because he's got a fight coming up for, I believe it's Arena fight, that promotion in France, or at least they're doing the show in France, and he made a point of saying that, look, I got to have options. So he's a smart businessman, Artem. I'm sure you've learned a lot from him.
Yeah, he's definitely someone nice to have around it, and he's as legit as it comes, and he's once again, you think of the stereotypical fighter, and there's still been that mindset in just fans, but really he's a very intelligent guy, and he knows what he's talking about, and he kind of cuts through all the he's as real as it gets. I know that's the UFC's line, but man, Artem really is as real as it gets, and it was actually just management that being with a newer promotion, EMC, we could swing our weight around a little bit because we are offering something to them. Let's face it, I think I am star material, and for them to get me is a nice big signing for them. So it gave us some more negotiating power there, as well as it's a nice partnership because, listen, if I'm not getting picked up after this fight, I'm fighting for them, so they get me for multiple fights, and they seem to be putting on events, putting on quite a few events. They did one September 5th, there's this one October 31st, so at least if I'm not with any let's call them major players, I'm active and I'm fighting and I'm competing and I'm showing my worth, so and I'm climbing that ladder, so really for me it's kind of win-win. I at least I get to keep on being active. Of course, after this I'd love to go and search the guy and be immediately in line for a UFC title shot. That's ideal, but that's not going to happen,
Right.
But now we can work backwards from there.
Yeah. And again, I'll say this, and I know we said this in the last interview, and people might call me biased here, but I think people overlook your record a little bit. I mean, you got the win over Bryce Mitchell. You got the win over Kyler Phillips. I know exhibition fights, but still, Kyler's undefeated in the UFC. Bryce is undefeated in the UFC.
Finished over Bryce Mitchell.
Finished over Bryce Mitchell, too.
I like the guy. I really do, and I'm quite happy for him. But
Yeah.
yes, it's still a finish, you know? So if you're saying, hey, he's not getting finishes, well, I finished him, you know, is one of those where it's, I think it was easy to discount those fights. They're like, exhibition's gone. But then when it works in their favor, whoever's favor of either hyping me up or cutting me down, you can count them or you can not count them. To me, they're real. To them, they can pretend they're not real, but it happened. Like,
yeah. No, and not just that, even your losses. Hunter Azure hasn't lost since, well, I mean, he had the one loss in between there, but still a good record in the UFC. Merab Dvalishvili, I mean, this guy looks like the dark horse at 135, and you happen to run into him at a bad time. Like, again, even the losses aren't bad. So just throwing that out there for the haters, because I know there's going to be people like, another tough bust, but like, come on, man. You're talented, man.
Yeah, like I am talented. I put a lot of work into this, and I feel like it's not just, and we can sit here and complain about. We can start talking about how I won every stat in the Hunter fight and didn't get the decision. Yeah. You know, I can talk about the Merab fight and how I think I could beat him now. You know, if I just think I tweaked one little thing, and you know, and the improvement from the Merab fight to the Hunter fight, I went from being out wrestled by one of the best wrestlers in the division to, you know, and Hunter has a very strong wrestling credential, and I out wrestled him. But none of that matters if I don't prove it in this fight. You
That's
know what
right,
I mean?
yeah.
Like, it's all nice and hypothetical and all. Oh, well, I think I didn't lose. I got robbed, or I beat him now, or I beat these guys. Nope. I got released. I'm going to prove my worth in this fight. And at the end of the day, that's the only thing I have power over. So yes, when you put it the way you did, yeah, it's kind of silly. You know, it's
and you could have been an engineer, Brad. Remember, you went to school for that. Yeah, so there you go. You could have made a nice paycheck, but it's not about that. It's about proving you're a good fighter. But anyways, let's talk about your opponent. Not to be confused, I'm sure there's some people who've made the joke that people thought you were fighting Stipe Miocic, right? Because the guy's named Stipe Brcic. I don't know how you say it, but he's 8-1. He looks pretty talented. What do you know about him?
You know, he's a skilled guy. He's got some knockouts on his record. It seems like he draws for some leg locks, and what I've seen is he has a decent, strong wrestling base as well. You know, with that said, I think he relies a little bit on his attributes. You know, he relies on being strong and fast and powerful. Unfortunately, I'm strong, fast, and powerful too, and so is everybody in the bantamweight division, and especially at the levels I fought in. Everyone's super athletes at this level. You know. What does he bring to the table that I haven't seen before, and what does he bring to the table that's greater than what I do? And I think the answer is none. You know, I think it's a good matchup for me in the sense that it's going to be 5 rounds, so I have time. You know, if just so happens he's able to sprint a round and a half and get that in the bag, and let's face it, I'm kind of going into hostile territory here. At least I have 3 more rounds to kind of cement my place and look for the finish. So I really don't think there's anybody out there that can keep the pace that I can. You know, in the Merab fight, he got quite fatigued in it, and we've seen him. You know, he went 3 rounds with Dodson, ragdolling him all over the place, and he didn't get tired. Yet he was tired against me. You know, against Hunter, I was the one pushing the later rounds. You know, so it's one of those where it's always in my benefit the longer the fight goes, because I feel the longer the fight goes, it favors the more skillful fighter. And at least in this matchup, I think I am. So I'm excited for it. And it's a good record. You know, like I said, I made a career off of fighting prospects and beating them. So this is just another prospect, maybe in a different part of the world, but just a different prospect that I'm going to go there and capitalize off of.
Training partners, usual cast of characters, or has that been changed with COVID? Like, who are you getting to work with? Driscoll, obviously you work with him, and yes. Richie Smullen. Like, who else are you getting to work with?
Yeah, you know, Driscoll's gone on a tear recently. You know, he just picked up a win in Bellator, so of course I'm working with him. There's an amateur in our gym, and I hate the term amateur because Aaron Daniels is fantastic, super strong skill set, kind of a perfect, a better version of who I'm fighting, in my opinion. You know, he's a little heavier. He'd fight at 45. Really, really solid striking, really tricky fighter. But he's not a pro yet, you know, and say, he's an amateur. I've seen him do rounds with a lot of out pros, and he's won a lot of them. You know, he's a dangerous guy, but I have to say, he's an amateur fighter, but man, he's world class. So I've been working with, and then Brian Moore, the usual cast of characters at SBG. There's a lot of solid bantamweights, solid featherweights, and a couple flyweights to get that speed. So I am getting all sorts of looks, and it's, you know, I'm just thankful to be back and be training with the team that I have.
Artem Lobov, get to work with him at all, or is he just kind of in and out? Because I know his fight's not till December.
Yeah, he's been in and out. I haven't had a chance to work with him. You know, I believe he is competing at lightweight, so he's probably going to err more on the side of not
heavier guys, yeah.
You know, cutting down to 35 now. I'm not the biggest guy in the gym by any means, but so I haven't had a chance to work with him specifically the past month or two, but I've worked with him in the past before, and you know, he's taught a couple classes when John's away, and it's always nice having him, you know, provide that knowledge, because like I said, he just cuts down to the truth and kind of gets rid of all of like that, I don't know,
the yes men type thing, you know. He's not going to suck up to you. He's going to tell it to you straight.
No, he's going to tell it to you straight. Like if he's watching people sparring and it's just a waste of time, you know, he says it right to the face. You know, and by that he's not a dick. He's one of the nicest guys in the sport. You know, one of the nicer guys I've ever met. So, but he tells the truth, and that's it's refreshing to have around.
Did you see Johnny Walker when he was in the gym? He's coming off a big win, and he got to train with you guys for a bit.
Yes, I. You know what? I actually carpooled with him. He'd pick me up on the way to the gym, and we'd go down. But he was in the gym quite a bit. Once again, super nice guy.
Yeah.
And I'm delighted for him. You know, seeing such a nice guy, I really wanted to get that win. You know, coming off of 2 bad losses, and he did it spectacularly. You know, that's always nice to see.
And a bit of a Canadian connection there too, because he was at TriStar before. So
absolutely.
I actually asked him about you in our interview, because I was like, hey, you know, because it seems like you're becoming a Canadian now. You're friends with Faraz, and now you're training with Katona. Yeah. So I was like, you know, not training specifically, but you guys are in the same gym, obviously. Because Johnny would be a little heavy for you to train with, I would think.
Yeah, man. I see what he does.
He's a huge guy. I've seen him in person. I've seen both of you in person. He's huge. He could easily fight a heavyweight.
Man. And he's athletic. You know, when you see him in the gym, what's really surprising is how quick he moves. You know, because you think, okay, big guy's going to be powerful. Of course, all of them are powerful, but he's quick. You know, and he moves very naturally, and that might sound weird, but when you see enough big guys, the kind of lumbering, you know, he moves like a small guy, and like I said, just delighted for him, because from what I've seen, I don't work with him, but he's a great training partner as well, you know. So it's nice to see a guy who's nice outside, nice in the gym, and then, you know, how can you not want him to be successful?
I agree. How's this fight unfolding on Halloween night? How do you see it playing out?
Oh, man, I really see it being a standout breakout performance for myself, you know, and that's the best way I can put it. This wasn't just like 6 weeks or 8 weeks, or, you know, count that how many weeks. This was a year in the making where, you know, I didn't take time off my fight. I didn't go, okay, you know, I feel bad for myself. When I lost in September, I went straight to the PI after, got some testing, and pretty well that was where everything took place. I just looked for ways to elevate my game, and then I've just continued on that. You know, it's not one of these where it's like, oh, you're reinvigorated. No, man, I was motivated. If you're fighting in the UFC, you better be motivated. And that motivation better be top 10 out of 10, you know, every time you step in there. But same thing here. I've just kind of kept that motivation throughout the year, because it was a lot of uncertainty, and you know, I can't point to a ton of great things that happened this year, but you know, this is my opportunity to really show myself off and show off my skill set, and it's quite exciting. You know, it's just to be able to do what I do. Got to be thankful for that.
Now, Brad, this is on Halloween night, like I mentioned, and you're not in the UFC anymore, so you can kind of wear what you want out, I would think, unless they're going to be restrictive of that. They don't strike me as the type of promotion to do that. Will you be wearing anything Superman themed to the cage? I got to know this.
Oh man, I could say, man, you're gonna have to tune in. But I wish I was one of those guys who could do a dance before I walk out to fight, or like.
But you're like laser focused. You don't want any distractions, right? It's just like, let's go in there.
Quite frankly, to be 100% honest, I don't want to lose and have to look at a Superman outfit, for my walkout, and I know that's not what your mindset should be, but like, you got to be realistic with yourself. There's always a chance. And, for me, it's going to be like, this one I feel like I just want to get in. I just want to get in there and do it. It's been a year. It's been build up. It's been a lot of, it's been a lot of bad news. Generally every time I heard from my coach or management, it was bad news. Hey, these people aren't signing anybody. Oh, hey, you're released from the UFC, or hey, this fight fell through that we're hoping for. Oh, we don't know when the gym's going to be back open, and that's not to complain that other people don't have it rougher, but it's just saying I kind of want to get this win, and then I want to see what else, I want to see what the board looks like afterwards for myself and for my loved ones. It's one where it's like, okay, what are we doing? If we're not fighting the best in the world, what are we doing? So I'm excited to go out there and just show myself off.
And if I'm not mistaken, this is the first title you fought for, right? Like, this will be a 5-round fight?
It will be a 5-round fight. And man, I'm sentimental. Like, I like getting that Ultimate Fighter trophy. I want a belt. Yeah. Like, just the idea of a belt or a gold medal, one of those, back in Pride with those like 5 or 6 feet tall trophies they used to give away. Yeah, I'd love any of those. To me, that's just cool. You see it, and it automatically flashes you back to that moment and everything around that fight. So after this fight, when I'm looking at the belt, years down the line, I'll be like, hey, that's the belt I won during the pandemic.
In Germany, of all places.
In Germany, it's stuff like that, which is cool. And like I said, it's 5 rounds, which I'm just happy about, because I can really show off. If it goes later, I can show what type of athlete I am and what type of competitor. And what I'm capable of, really.
One name you mentioned in this interview, and I brought this up before because I think people forgot, you were supposed to fight TJ Laramie years ago, and now TJ's in the UFC, had that really good win on Contender Series, but obviously his debut did not go as planned. As a fellow Canadian, as a fighter who came into the sport pretty young, what advice would you give him after a loss like that? Because, I think a lot of people were pretty hard on him. I know there was a lot of hype behind him, but, it's one of those things where he's still young in his career. I think he's, in his early 20s as well. So what advice would you give to him?
Fortunately, I haven't been stopped in my career, so I don't necessarily know what that's like. But I did lose a unanimous decision to Marab, where he shut me down every round. That's almost harder in some ways. It's just trusting the process, I guess. That's what brought me back, and finding why are you doing this? Like, you'll learn pretty quick that not everyone can make a giant chunk of money all the time with it, so it's one of those where the why has to be very strong. If it is purely financial, I think there's much easier ways to make good money. There's much easier ways than going out there and fighting in front of a cage. Man, it's tough. Like, it's tough, and especially with the uncertainty of it all. But really finding that why you do it and doubling down on that. I can at least speak for myself, and it's to be the best in the world. Like, if I'm not pursuing excellence, there's no point in me doing this. It's like I said, there's easier ways of making money, and if I was doing this for my friends and family, I'd get a job with good benefits. So, there was no worries at all. I'm going in there. I'm risking my health. Financially, it's not the most secure, outing. It's 50% weighs on the result. So doubling down on that why would be my biggest piece of advice, because that's kind of kept me off of losses, off of wins, off of everything, keeping the wins, muffling it down to kind of the baseline, and the losses upping it to the baseline. It's kind of squishing everything together. That way you're never too high on yourself, and you're never too low either.
Very well said. I agree. My last question, and we've gone way over time, but this is how it is with you and me.
This is how it is.
Katie, any fight news with her? I know there aren't doing many shows right now. I know Invicta's doing a few, but obviously they're backed up, like you said, with the roster. Any fight news for her? Because we're really excited to see her get back in the cage.
Yeah, it's been tough being international, trying to get in to Invicta, but there has been strong dialogue back and forth. We've offered all sorts of solutions, and Shan seems like she's working on ways of getting us to be able to compete. So nothing signed yet. I'm hoping that she fights on the next event. I know they have one, I believe, scheduled fairly soon. I know we're not on that one, but we have been talking to Shannon, so hopefully the one after. And Kitty's always ready, short notice. I know John's going to be in the U.S. for Pedro Calvillo's fight in November, so he's going to be there anyway. So if we do need to hop on something, if there is that opportunity, Kitty's happy to go down, and John will be there. So that kind of works. Ideally, we would have been on it already, but we didn't quite make that work in time. So hopefully the next one, I'm excited to see. I've been working away since my last fight, and so is she. So the amount of improvement we squeezed out of a year is really impressive, and I can't wait till she gets to show it off. She fought a top prospect on, I think, 10 days or less notice last time, and lost a split decision. I think she run through that girl now, 10 days notice or not, so I can't wait for her to show it off. But like the times, it's trying, and there's no word yet on complete confirmation. But hopefully next event in Invicta, that's what we're hoping for, and that's what we're pushing.
Brad, always appreciate the time, man. Great to see you get a fight. Really looking forward to this one. Yes. October 31st. If you're, don't go trick-or-treating, stay in and watch this fight. Although I guess with the time change, it might work out. But exactly. As always, I will give you the last word here. If you got any sponsors, social media, the floor is yours, man.
Really, the people I have to thank are the fans that have stuck by me. There were some haters. Surprisingly, there were some haters, but I get so much love and support online. It's really amazing. And being a kid from Winnipeg, getting messages from all over the world, came back saying they can't wait to see me compete again, and saying even just that they didn't think me getting released was just. It's been a lot of positive, just infused over the past couple of weeks, especially with this fight announcement. So, more than anybody, I really have to thank them and my close circle. It's not been an easy year for anybody. Probably hasn't been an easy year for yourself either, James. But we'll get through it, and things are looking on the up and up. And with all these shows coming up, it's really exciting to be looking at least our sport and being hopeful that big things are still happening.